15 worst junkies in R&B history. Their downfall is heartbreaking. What if I told you that 15 of the greatest R&B legends were secretly some of the worst junkies in music history? Behind their timeless hits and millions of records lay devastating battles with drugs and alcohol that destroyed careers, families, and lives. Are you ready for the shocking truth? Like this video and subscribe now. Amy Winehouse.
First time I met Tone, I would say, was...
Few voices defined a generation quite like Amy Winehouse. With her raw, smoky tone and brutally honest lyrics, she became the face of modern soul. Her 2006 album, Back to Black, sold millions worldwide and earned her 5 Grammy Awards in 2008, tying a then record for most wins by a female artist in a single night. On stage, she was magnetic. Off-stage, however, a far more fragile story was unfolding. Behind the success, Amy was locked in a relentless battle with addiction. Reports and interviews confirmed her use of multiple substances, including heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, and ketamine. Yet the most persistent and ultimately devastating force in her life was alcohol. In August 2007, she was hospitalized following what was widely reported as an overdose, forcing her to cancel several shows across the UK and Europe. By 2008, her struggles had begun affecting her career more visibly. She failed a drug test that initially prevented her from traveling to the United States for the Grammy Awards, though she ultimately performed via satellite. The downward spiral continued. In 2009, a leaked video appearing to show her smoking crack cocaine intensified global concern. Despite these setbacks, Amy did attempt to turn things around. She publicly stated that she had stopped using illegal drugs, but alcohol remained a constant presence she couldn't escape. Periods of sobriety were often followed by relapse, creating a dangerous cycle that became harder to break. On July 23, 2011, Amy Winehouse was found dead at her home in London at just 27 years old. The official coroner's report concluded that she died from alcohol poisoning with a blood alcohol level of 0.416%, more than 5 times the UK legal driving limit. Her story stands as a stark reminder even extraordinary talent cannot outpace the destructive grip of addiction. Marvin Gaye.
But I don't know if I wouldn't steal.
Few artists have shaped the sound and soul of R&B like Marvin Gaye. Often called the Prince of Motown, he transformed popular music with timeless masterpieces such as What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and Sexual Healing. His voice carried both tenderness and truth, turning personal emotion into universal messages. At his peak, Marvin Gaye wasn't just a star, he was a cultural voice for social change, love, and human struggle. But behind the brilliance was a long and painful battle with addiction and inner turmoil. Gaye began using cocaine in the early 1960s, but by the late 1970s, his dependency had escalated into severe addiction, including freebasing cocaine. His mental and emotional state deteriorated rapidly during this period. Reports and biographies describe episodes of paranoia, depression, and extreme instability. At one point, he reportedly attempted suicide using a large quantity of cocaine, reflecting just how deep his despair had become. The consequences extended far beyond health. His addiction contributed to intense marital conflict, financial collapse, and repeated breakdowns in both personal and professional life. His marriage to Anna Gordy Gaye ended in divorce, and ongoing instability forced him to leave the United States for periods of self-imposed exile in Europe. Despite still creating music, his career was increasingly overshadowed by his struggles, and his ability to maintain consistency on stage and in the studio declined significantly. On April 1, 1984, just one day before his 45th birthday, Marvin Gaye was shot and killed by his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., during a family dispute in Los Angeles. Toxicology reports later confirmed the presence of cocaine in his system at the time of death. Marvin Gaye's story is a tragic reminder that even the most extraordinary talent cannot escape the consequences of unresolved trauma and addiction. His music endures as legendary, but his life reflects the fragile human cost behind genius. Etta James.
good, right? Because I'm 70 years old now.
Few voices in soul and blues history carry the emotional weight of Etta James. Best known for timeless classics like At Last and I'd Rather Go Blind, she wasn't just a singer, she was a force of raw feeling capable of turning pain into unforgettable music. But behind that legendary voice was a decades-long struggle that nearly consumed her. Etta's battle with addiction began early and intensified as her fame grew. She became dependent on heroin while also struggling with alcoholism, creating a cycle that was both physically and emotionally destructive. By 1966, her addiction had already led to legal trouble. She was arrested for writing bad checks and placed on probation. Just a few years later, in 1969, she violated that probation and served time in jail. Her need to sustain her addiction drove her into increasingly risky behavior, including forging prescriptions and stealing. The situation escalated in 1973 when she was arrested again, this time for heroin possession. Instead of a long prison sentence, the court ordered her into treatment at the Tarzana Psychiatric Hospital, where she spent approximately 17 months. While this period marked a turning point, it wasn't a simple recovery. During treatment, she became dependent on methadone, highlighting how deeply rooted her addiction had become. Although Etta James experienced periods of sobriety and made several comebacks in her career, the battle never fully disappeared. Even decades later, in 2010, she sought treatment again, this time for an addiction to prescription painkillers. She passed away in 2012, leaving behind a legacy of both extraordinary artistry and hard-earned survival. Her story carries a powerful message: addiction does not discriminate. Even a voice that could move millions was not immune to its grip. In the end, Etta James wasn't just a legend. She was also a survivor of a lifelong war with herself. David Ruffin.
I came from Hot Spring, Arkansas. I just finished...
Few voices defined the golden era of Motown like David Ruffin. As the unmistakable lead voice of the Temptations, he delivered some of the most enduring classics in soul history, including My Girl Ain't Too Proud to Beg and I Wish It Would Rain. His raspy, emotional delivery became the signature sound of an era and helped cement the Temptations as one of Motown's most successful groups. At his peak, Ruffin was not just a singer, he was the voice of a generation. But behind the fame, a dangerous pattern had already begun forming. By the mid-1960s, Ruffin started using cocaine, and over time, his usage escalated into dependency. As his addiction deepened, so did tensions within the group. His behavior became increasingly unpredictable, leading to growing conflicts with management and fellow members. In 1968, the Temptations made the difficult decision to remove him from the group due to his unreliability and substance-related issues. After leaving the group, Ruffin attempted a solo career, but the stability he once had was gone. His struggles with cocaine, later including crack cocaine, intensified throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Legal troubles followed, including multiple arrests for possession, notably in 1988, along with repeated probation violations. Despite attempts at rehabilitation, he continued to relapse and his career steadily declined. Financial instability added further pressure, leaving him increasingly isolated. On June 1, 1991, David Ruffin died at the age of 50 after suffering an accidental overdose of crack cocaine in Philadelphia. He was found in a crack house and later pronounced dead at a hospital. His passing marked a tragic end to a life that once symbolized vocal excellence and artistic brilliance. David Ruffin's story stands as a powerful reminder that even the most extraordinary talent cannot fully escape the destructive force of addiction. A voice that once defined Motown was ultimately silenced by the very struggle that followed him for decades. Charlie Wilson.
I'm tired right now because I just got to perform for the pre-tail.
At his peak, Charlie Wilson, affectionately known as Uncle Charlie, was the electrifying frontman of the Gap Band, delivering funk and soul anthems that defined an era. With chart-topping hits and a voice that could command any stage, he seemed unstoppable. But when the group lost its management and publishing deal in 1986, everything began to unravel. Stripped of direction and stability, Wilson turned to cocaine, crack, and alcohol as a way to cope with the sudden collapse of his career structure. What began as an escape quickly spiraled into full-blown addiction. Over time, he lost control of both his life and identity. The consequences were severe. Wilson became homeless, spending nearly 2 years living on the streets of Los Angeles. To avoid recognition, he moved at night and hid during the day, often relying on strangers or public sprinklers just to survive. His weight dropped dramatically to around 130 pounds, approximately 58 kilograms, a stark reflection of how far he had fallen from fame. This period marked the lowest point of his life, but it wasn't the end. His turning point came when he met Maheen Wilson, a former drug counselor who would later become his wife. With her support and guidance, he entered recovery and committed to rebuilding himself step by step. Unlike many stories in the industry, Charlie Wilson's journey did not end in tragedy. It became one of resilience. He not only achieved sobriety, but also staged a powerful comeback, re-establishing himself as a successful solo artist with multiple awards and chart success. His story delivers a clear message: even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible, but it requires humility, support, and persistence to truly escape the cycle. Jackie Wilson. Few performers in music history embodied pure energy like Jackie Wilson. Known as Mr. Excitement, he helped bridge the gap between early R&B and modern soul, delivering more than 50 charting hits, including 16 top 10 R&B records. His stage presence was revolutionary, dynamic, athletic, and emotionally charged, earning him a reputation as one of the greatest live performers of all time. But behind the electrifying performances was a man quietly battling inner turmoil. Jackie Wilson struggled with substance abuse, with alcohol as his primary issue, compounded by the use of amphetamines and cocaine. As the pressures of fame mounted, these habits became a dangerous coping mechanism. Still, it wasn't just addiction that shaped his downward spiral, it was devastating personal loss. In 1970, tragedy struck when his 16-year-old son, Jackie Wilson Jr., was shot and killed near their home in Detroit. The loss shattered him. Friends and colleagues noted a profound change in his behavior. He became withdrawn, depressed, and increasingly dependent on alcohol and drugs to numb the pain. The heartbreak didn't end there. In the years that followed, 2 of his daughters also died at young ages, compounding his grief and pushing him deeper into emotional collapse. As his mental state deteriorated, so did his career. The man once celebrated for his unstoppable energy began to fade from the spotlight. Performances became less frequent, and his health declined significantly. By the later years of his life, Jackie Wilson was no longer the vibrant force that had once dominated the stage. He was a man overwhelmed by loss, addiction, and exhaustion. His story is a powerful reminder that even the most extraordinary talents are not immune to life's harshest blows. In the end, it wasn't just fame or addiction that brought him down, but the unbearable weight of personal tragedy combined with it. Whitney Houston.
Motion picture. The Bodyguard was
Few artists have ever embodied vocal perfection like Whitney Houston. Known worldwide as The Voice, she sold over 200 million records and delivered era-defining hits, while her performance in The Bodyguard 1992 elevated her into a global cultural phenomenon. Her power control and emotional depth set a standard few could match. But behind that unmatched talent was a private battle that grew more intense at the height of her fame. Following the overwhelming success of The Bodyguard, Whitney's life became increasingly turbulent. She later admitted that her drug use escalated during the mid to late 1990s, involving substances such as cocaine, crack alcohol, and prescription medications. What began as recreational use gradually turned into dependency. By 1999, her family, led by her mother, Cissy Houston, staged an intervention urging her to seek help. Whitney entered rehab multiple times over the years, but recovery proved inconsistent. Publicly, she attempted to control the narrative. In a now famous 2002 interview, she dismissed rumors with the phrase, "crack is whack yet." Years later, she openly admitted that her addiction had been far more serious than she initially revealed. Her physical appearance changed noticeably during this period. She appeared significantly thinner, fueling widespread concern about her health. Despite periods of sobriety and attempted comebacks, relapse remained a recurring challenge. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in a hotel bathtub in Beverly Hills. The official coroner's report concluded that she died from accidental drowning with cocaine use and heart disease listed as contributing factors. Toxicology reports also identified alcohol and Xanax in her system. Her story is a sobering reality. Even the most extraordinary voice in the world could not fully escape the grip of addiction. Talent alone is not protection, and fame in many ways can amplify the struggle rather than silence it. D'Angelo.
To kind of like point the way was Prince.
Few artists have reshaped modern R&B as profoundly as D'Angelo. Widely regarded as a pioneer of the neo-soul movement, he broke through with Brown Sugar, 1995, a debut that sold over 1 million copies and redefined the genre with its raw, organic sound. By the early 2000s, he was seen not just as a star, but as the future of soul music. Yet just as his influence reached its peak, everything began to unravel. In 2001, the sudden death of his close friend Fred Jordan became a turning point. The loss hit him deeply, triggering a period of emotional instability that quickly spiraled into heavy alcohol use and drug-related struggles. At the same time, D'Angelo was growing increasingly uncomfortable with fame, especially the way the industry and media fixated on his image rather than his artistry. The pressure combined with personal grief pushed him into isolation. For years, he virtually disappeared from the public eye. Behind the scenes, his life was unraveling. In 2005, he was arrested on charges related to drug possession, and his mugshot shocked fans, showing a stark contrast to the confident, polished artist they once knew. That same period was marked by a serious car accident, further fueling rumors about his physical and mental state. His long-delayed follow-up album stalled, and his career seemed frozen in time. Eventually recognizing the need for change, D'Angelo entered rehabilitation. Recovery was neither quick nor easy. It took years of rebuilding both personally and artistically. But unlike many similar stories, his did not end in tragedy. He gradually returned to music, proving that even after a long absence, redemption was possible. His journey highlights a hard truth. Fame alone doesn't break people, but combined with loss and pressure, it can create a storm few are prepared to survive. Natalie Cole.
When I think of the journey.
Born into a musical legacy, Natalie Cole seemed destined for greatness. As the daughter of Nat King Cole, she carried both talent and expectation. Her breakthrough came fast. By 1975, she won the Grammy Award for Best New Artist, launching a career filled with chart-topping hits and critical acclaim. But behind the polished image, a dangerous struggle was quietly taking hold. In the early 1980s, Natalie fell into severe addiction to heroin and crack cocaine. What began as experimentation escalated into dependency, pulling her into situations far removed from her celebrity status. At her lowest point, she admitted to acting as a lookout for prostitutes just to support her habit, an indication of how deeply addiction had taken control. The consequences were not just psychological, but life-threatening. In one incident, she nearly died in a house fire because she was too impaired to react. In another, her young son was placed in danger while she was under the influence, moments that forced her to confront the reality of her situation. By 1983, recognizing she was on a path toward self-destruction, Natalie made a decisive move. She entered a rehabilitation program and committed to recovery. She spent approximately 6 months in treatment, a period that marked the beginning of a long and difficult rebuilding process. Sobriety didn't instantly restore her career, but it gave her the clarity and discipline to start again. Her comeback reached a peak with the 1987 album Everlasting, which re-established her as a major force in R&B and pop. The success wasn't just commercial, it symbolized survival. Natalie Cole's story is proof that recovery is possible, but it comes at a steep cost. Talent may open doors, but overcoming addiction demands something far greater: accountability, resilience, and the willingness to rebuild from the ground up. Al Green.
I want to thank the
Few voices in soul music are as instantly recognizable as Al Green, the man behind timeless classics like Let's Stay Together. Rising to fame in the early 1970s, he became a defining figure of romantic soul blending smooth vocals with deep emotional resonance. But behind the success was a turbulent personal life, shaped by drugs, instability, and inner conflict. In his early years, Green struggled with a chaotic lifestyle that included substance use and volatile relationships. As fame grew, so did the intensity of his personal issues. Reports from that period describe multiple incidents of violence and legal disputes reflecting a man losing control under pressure. The most shocking turning point came in 1974 when his girlfriend died by suicide after a deeply troubled relationship. The tragedy left a lasting psychological impact, forcing Green to confront the consequences of his lifestyle. That moment became a catalyst for transformation. In the years that followed, Al Green turned away from his previous path and embraced faith. He became an ordained pastor and founded his own church in Memphis, shifting his focus almost entirely to gospel music. This spiritual redirection was not just a career move, it was a personal attempt at redemption and healing. For over a decade, he distanced himself from the mainstream spotlight, dedicating his life to ministry and religious music. Eventually, Green found a balance between his past and present. By the late 1980s, he returned to secular music, collaborating with artists like Annie Lennox while maintaining his identity as a pastor. His later career reflected both his roots in soul and his spiritual evolution. Al Green's journey shows that change is possible even after deep personal turmoil. Faith and determination can redirect a life, but they don't erase the past. The scars remain, serving as a reminder of how close everything once came to falling apart. Gerald Levert.
But, no cigar.
Born into a legendary musical lineage, Gerald Levert carried the legacy of his father, Eddie Levert, into a new era of R&B. As a member of the group Levert and later the supergroup LSG alongside Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill, he built a reputation for powerful vocals and emotionally charged performances. Over the course of his career, he released 9 solo albums and contributed to multiple successful collaborations, solidifying his place in modern R&B. But behind the success, Gerald faced a quieter, often overlooked struggle: dependence on prescription medications. Unlike many public narratives centered on illegal drugs, his case involved legally prescribed substances. He reportedly used a combination of painkillers and anti-anxiety medications, including drugs such as Vicodin, Percocet, and Xanax. These medications were often prescribed to manage chronic pain and anxiety, but over time their combined use created a dangerous situation. On November 10, 2006, Gerald Levert was found unresponsive in his home in Cleveland, Ohio, at just 40 years old. Initial reports suggested a heart attack, but the official autopsy revealed the true cause: an accidental overdose. Toxicology findings confirmed that multiple prescription drugs were present in his system, including opioids and benzodiazepines, along with over-the-counter medications. The interaction between these substances ultimately proved fatal. His death highlighted a critical issue, often underestimated: the risks associated with prescription drug misuse. Because these medications are legally obtained, their danger can be overlooked even when taken in high doses or combined improperly. Gerald Levert's story serves as a sobering reminder that addiction does not always come from illicit substances. Even medically approved drugs can become life-threatening when misused. In the end, his legacy remains not only in his music, but also in the cautionary lesson his life leaves behind. Michael Jackson.
I love you.
Few artists have transformed global music the way Michael Jackson did. As the king of pop, he redefined performance visuals and commercial success, influencing generations and reshaping the industry itself. But behind the groundbreaking achievements was a long and complex struggle with dependency on prescription medications. Michael Jackson's battle began in the 1980s and intensified in the 1990s when he was prescribed powerful painkillers following injuries and medical procedures. Over time, this evolved into a broader reliance on sedatives and other drugs to manage chronic pain, anxiety, and severe insomnia. By the 2000s, his dependence had deepened. Reports indicated that he relied on multiple physicians and used various methods, including aliases, to obtain medications. Among the substances he used were opioids, benzodiazepines, and most notably propofol, a powerful anesthetic typically reserved for hospital settings. What made his case especially dangerous was his use of propofol as a sleep aid. Medical professionals have consistently warned that this drug is not intended for unsupervised or routine use outside controlled environments. Despite these risks, Jackson reportedly believed it was the only way he could rest, especially as he prepared for his planned 2009 comeback tour. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died at the age of 50. The official cause was acute propofol intoxication combined with other sedatives. His personal physician, Conrad Murray, was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter for administering the drug in a non-medical setting and failing to provide proper care. His death shocked the world not only because of his status, but because it revealed how vulnerable even the most powerful figures can be. Michael Jackson's story underscores a harsh reality. Fame, wealth, and influence cannot shield anyone from the dangers of addiction, especially when it hides behind legitimate prescriptions. Samuel Moore.
Tony Bennett's and the Sam Cooks and the Jackie.
As one half of the legendary duo Sam and Dave Sam Moore helped define the golden era of soul music. With explosive stage chemistry and hits like Soul Man and Hold On I'm Comin'. The duo became one of the most influential acts of the 1960s, later earning induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. On the surface, Moore's career was a story of triumph, but behind it was a long and difficult personal battle. Following the group's initial split around 1970, Moore's life took a darker turn. He became deeply involved with heroin and cocaine, a struggle that lasted for nearly 15 years. What began as a way to cope with the pressures of fame and the breakdown of a successful partnership quickly spiraled into full dependency. As his addiction worsened, it didn't just affect his health, it directly impacted his career. Attempts to reunite with his partner Dave Prater failed to restore their former success, and subsequent albums struggled commercially, marking a sharp decline from their earlier dominance. The consequences went beyond music. Addiction-strained relationships disrupted professional momentum and overshadowed his immense talent. The once unstoppable duo lost its rhythm, and Moore found himself drifting further from the spotlight that had once defined him. His turning point came in 1982 during a European tour when he met Joyce McRae. More than just a partner, she became a guiding force in his recovery, helping him confront his addiction and rebuild his life. With her support, Moore entered sobriety and gradually regained stability. Sam Moore's journey is a powerful reminder that addiction doesn't just affect individuals, it can fracture even the most iconic partnerships. Yet it also shows that recovery is possible, especially when someone is willing to accept help and fight for a second chance. Bobby DeBarge. With a voice that could soar effortlessly into falsetto, Bobby DeBarge stood out as the lead singer of the group Switch and a guiding force behind the success of his family band, DeBarge. His talent was undeniable, smooth, emotional, and ahead of its time. He wasn't just a performer. He was a mentor who helped shape a new wave of R&B sound. But behind the music was a life marked by struggle from an early age. Bobby's battle with heroin began when he was still young, long before the peak of his career. What started early quickly turned into a deep and persistent addiction that followed him through every stage of his life. Despite moments of success, the pull of drugs never fully loosened its grip. Over time, his addiction led him into more dangerous territory, including involvement in drug trafficking. In 1988, Bobby's life took a decisive turn when he and his brother were caught transporting approximately 2 pounds of cocaine. He was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. During his time behind bars, he revealed to his family that he had contracted HIV, an illness that would later define his final years. Although prison gave him time to reflect and attempt change, the damage to his health had already begun. After his release in 1993, Bobby tried to rebuild his life and return to music. He recorded new material and showed signs of determination, even titling one of his projects as a statement of resilience. But his condition continued to deteriorate. On August 16, 1995, at just 39 years old, Bobby DeBarge passed away from complications related to AIDS. His story is a powerful and tragic reminder. When addiction begins early, it can set off a chain reaction that becomes increasingly difficult to escape. Talent alone is not enough to reverse its course once the damage runs deep. Chem.
You're my weakness.
Before the success. Before the sold-out shows, Chem was living a very different life. Today, he's known as a leading voice in contemporary R&B, with his debut album Chemistry achieving gold certification and establishing him as a major artist. But his journey to that point was anything but smooth. It was marked by addiction, homelessness, and survival on the streets of Detroit. In his early years, Chem struggled with severe substance abuse that spiraled out of control. His addiction led to multiple arrests and repeated hospital visits as his health and stability deteriorated. At his lowest point, he became homeless, living on the streets and in shelters, often uncertain of where his next meal would come from. The contrast between the artist he would become and the man he was during this period could not have been more extreme. For years, he was caught in a cycle that seemed impossible to escape. But unlike many similar stories, Chem's turning point came from within. He has openly spoken about finding faith and making a conscious decision to change his life. That decision didn't bring instant success, but it gave him direction. Step by step, he rebuilt himself, focusing on sobriety, discipline, and music. Determined to create his own opportunity, Chem independently funded and recorded Chemistry, even using personal credit to bring the project to life. The album gained traction locally, eventually leading to a deal with Motown Records, which re-released it to a wider audience. From there, his career took off, proving that his talent had always been there waiting for the right moment to rise. Chem's story carries a powerful message. No matter how far someone falls, change is possible. Recovery requires effort, belief, and persistence. But with those, even the darkest chapter can lead to a new beginning. These 15 legendary R&B voices created timeless music while silently battling some of the darkest addictions in music history. From early graves to powerful comebacks, their stories reveal fame's brutal price. Who among them suffered the most? Whose journey shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it.